If you're an average player, you want to be left alone, right? Because you want to be able to slide by. If you're a good player, you want to be coached. If you're a great player, you want the coach to tell you the truth every day. Did I hustle on that play? Did I make the right read? Did I play the guy with the right leverage? You want to know every play. Because you know why? They want to be perfect. Everybody here makes a choice to do one of those three things.
Welcome to the GOAT Consulting Podcast, a podcast dedicated to people striving to be a GOAT, the greatest of all time, serving it up in a way that you can get it in all stages of life.
Hey, I'm Colby Jubenville, and welcome to another episode of the GOAT Consulting Podcast right here in studio at VC Productions. Always at the table with me. We're in season 2, which is so excited. This is the Christmas edition, hence the
so excited.
The sweater that you always bring to the global audience as they listen on places like Spotify, Podbean,
YouTube, Pocket Cast, Google, Amazon.
You name it all. It's the same people at the table. New topic. Always at the table with me is my good friend Tyler Burnett, the founder and CEO of the GOAT family of brands. And all the way from Brentwood, the LinkedIn Whisperer, and someone that has a beautiful sweater on today. Do you wear that to the parties?
Yeah,
Do you go to a John Byers? Do you go to? You do have a last name, Byers. Do you go to those kind of parties?
Yeah, and all the way from Bethlehem, our fourth guest on the show today is Baby Jesus
with a dove.
LBJ.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah, he's here.
This is the Christmas edition.
He's in his baby Bjorn.
I see that.
Little Baby Jesus takes me back to Coach Pete.
Oh gosh.
And
do you think of little baby Jesus with one tooth and a beard?
No, I think about Coach Pete.
Okay.
And we used to say that he had a little red phone in his desk, and it would be the radar.
I remember
the
this.
radar would be red, and he would he'd make a phone call to little Baby Jesus and tell him to part the weather. We got to work. We got practice today. All right, line. Jesus, I see the radar, but I'm trusting in you to split this thing.
Well, there's a lot of similarities, I think, between Coach Pete and Santa Claus, and maybe we'll get into that later in the episode.
A lot of wish fulfillment from that man as well.
Yeah. Little foreshadowing there.
Yeah.
That is the topic for today. It is wish fulfillment, but before we get there, we're going to serve it up in a way that you can get it. It's about the stages of life and career. 20s get in, 30s move up, 40s we stay in the game because those 30-year-olds are so good, and the 50s we say, what is it that I really want? What is it that I really want? And it's always about the GOAT, and you came up with that great idea so long ago in building the GOAT family of brands. But in sport, it's easy to see. It's the people that are recognized for their greatness. They elevate the play around those around them. In business, it's people that compete on unique perspective, education, experience. And what they do gives them energy, it gives other people energy, and creates new levels of challenge and new levels of opportunity. The Christmas edition this year is a little bit different than last year. We're coming out of the pandemic.
Yeah.
We're coming out of the pandemic, and 2021 has been a year like no other, with increased social, political, and economic upheaval, all the bad and doom and gloom. Then now's the time to look at it and say, what have we learned? And now that we're in this season of Christmas and giving and receiving and all the other things that come along with that, we decided.
A lot of pressure.
A lot of pressure.
There's a lot of pressure.
And anxiety.
Yeah.
We can talk about that too, but we
kind of like the anxiety Mary probably had with a bearded one-tooth infant, nursing infant.
Will you wear that outside of the Christmas party, or is it just at the Christmas party itself? Will you wear that?
It will hang out at certain places around town between now and Christmas.
The UPS stores are overloaded. People are overloaded. We certainly are overloaded after what we've all been through in 2021. Last year we talked about the magic in the mess. The magic is in the mess, and this year it is, and we can certainly play to that. But you decided that you wanted to look at something a little bit different this year. The topic for today's show, our Christmas special, is around this idea of wish fulfillment.
Yeah.
Just like when Coach Pete dialed it up on the red phone, parted the ways and was able to allow y'all to practice and his wish come true, and I know yours as well. As much
Well,
as
at the time, our wish was that it would rain.
It
right?
would cancel practice.
Cancel practice. So
you've told me how many times you love practicing.
Oh, I did, but at the back of my mind, I still wanted the day off. Doesn't everybody?
Who doesn't?
That's
So
right.
there's a crossover between wish fulfillment, because as you so eloquently described, as you normally do,
That's right.
how that relates to this season that we're in. There's also a term, wish fulfillment, that's used in film. And directors and producers of heroic films, which I guess every film likely has a hero, I would guess. That's why we watch them. But it's a phrase used in the context specifically of action heroes where the directors and the producers are trying to convince the audience, encourage, influence the audience to want to trade places with the hero of the movie.
Yeah.
And there's something that's innately born in us when we're born, I guess I might say. But I read this paper recently, 2017, in the Nature Human Behavior, and they found that humans from an infant age are able to recognize heroic acts, even from the earliest stages of development as infants. And along with that, the sense of justice and adoration, and what they described as that being innate and coming from us very shortly after we're born, which I thought was fascinating.
Yeah.
And it makes total sense when you think from a movie, a theatrical standpoint, trying to take this concept of encouraging the audience to be the hero, wanting to trade places with the hero, that's what ties us into movies.
Okay, I'm learning how to listen intently, right, and really focus. And what I just heard you say was that they did studies with babies,
Yes.
and the babies told them that they recognize things like justice.
The bearded one-tooth babies told them they could recognize heroic behavior.
Through heartbeats or through.
I don't know how they did it, but that's what they were able to define. Babies can recognize heroic acts from early stages.
I mean, I'm buying it. It is Christmas, and it's
Thank you.
It's about
Thank you for that.
Believing.
it's about believing.
Yes.
And so
And it's
here,
not always seeing, it's believing.
yeah.
yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So here's my goat. Here's my goat. Why don't you just look up that paper? Maybe
I will.
the Nature Human Behavior 2017 paper. So here's my goat for this wish fulfillment this season. Don't send me your hate mail. One of the greatest Christmas movies of all time, and there's lots to choose from, right? I mean, there's an array of goats in Christmas movies.
Yeah.
And Christmas movies are really fascinating, right? Because it triggers something in us in such a way that we watch them once every year. There are movies that we think are great, but we don't watch them every year. Christmas movies, we watch them every year. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
One of the greatest Christmas movies of all time, Die Hard. And my good friend, John McClane, is a fascinating
Is he a relative
character.
or just a friend?
Both.
Okay.
It can be both. And in fact, I had ordered a T-shirt for this, which was the Nakatomi Plaza 1988 Christmas party T-shirt, but it did not come in time for this episode, so we get Baby Jesus and his Bjorn. But John McClane, I mean, think about Die Hard. Like every great action hero movie resembles what was created in Die Hard. I mean, you think about the movie Captain Phillips with Tom Hanks. It is Die Hard on a boat. You think about
That's a true story.
it is a true story, and it's
Wilson?
It's because
Wilson.
gosh, I'm so disappointed.
That was Tom Hanks, though, wasn't it?
You got to edit that out. Yes, he was in more than one movie. Yes, you're right.
I don't watch movies. I know that movie, though. Wilson.
Nonstop was an airplane movie that Liam Neeson was in.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, Liam Neeson, every film is off of Die Hard. But yeah, Captain Phillips was a true story based off somebody that watched Die Hard and said, "I want to do that on a boat." Die Hard. Did you know there are websites dedicated to dedicated websites that showcase people's Die Hard tattoos?
Really?
Yes, that's a thing.
Where is yours located?
You're pausing the episode right now. Mine will be up on our website later. Pausing.
No,
it
he
now
meant on
here.
you. Where's the
Your tattoo.
tattoo?
That's what I meant. Yeah, it'll be up later on our website. But here's the fascinating thing about Die Hard is
Show notes. John has a tattoo of
John
Die Hard.
McClane.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's saying Yipee Ki-Yay.
Okay.
But here's the fascinating thing about Die Hard around this whole topic of wish fulfillment.
Yeah.
There's lots of action hero movies where we can very easily be convinced that to want to trade places with the action hero, right? So you think of like Free Guy, which is a new one. If you haven't seen it, Ryan Reynolds, absolutely fascinating. So good.
I haven't seen it.
I want to trade places with him in a second. It's fantastic. Check it out. It's on Prime.
Okay.
But Die Hard, it's hard to want to trade places with a guy like John McClane that gets beat up in almost every scene. He's not your big, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Stallone, which were very popular during the same time. Very easy to trade places with these massive guys that are having like 100 men come at them, in a film.
Mowing them down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he's just crushing them. McClane doesn't do that. He gets beat up in every scene. He walks through glass in his bare feet. He almost loses his wife, and yet his only choice, as he saw it, was to rise to the challenge. And it in a fascinating way feeds my desire, I might say, not necessarily trade places with him, but to be as capable, noble, and willing to face adversity. And that's what's so fascinating that keeps drawing me back to Die Hard every single year.
Did you feel that same way about the second Die Hard as well? Isn't there a 2?
Oh, gosh, I think there's 3 and there's just a 4th, I think just now coming out. But yeah, I don't know. The second one was good, but every one it gets a little bit more watered down.
So say that part again. So it's his desire to act in a noble way. It's his drive and motivation to act in a way that's...
The fascinating thing about Die Hard for me around this topic of wish fulfillment, which as film and producers, directors put it, they tried to create a desire from the audience to want to trade places with the action hero.
Yeah.
But Die Hard, it's hard for us to want to do that with John McClane because he's getting beat up and going through all these things. His only choice is to rise to the challenge. So what it does feed for me is this desire to not necessarily trade places with him, but to be as capable, noble, and willing to face adversity in such ways as he does.
Interesting.
Wish fulfillment.
Wish fulfillment.
Very interesting.
What are your thoughts on that, wish fulfillment?
I love I love what he talked about earlier. It's like you think you want something, but you go through it and you don't get what you want. And you referred to the Grinch earlier outside of the podcast, but I love that. It's sometimes what you think you want.
He's a goat.
He is.
My wife put it last year. She said he's a goat in the same movie within minutes, the best and the worst. He's a goat in both worlds.
From goat to hero.
Wow.
The goat bad guy, the goat good guy.
True.
Pretty fascinating.
Coach Pete used to say, all right, you went from the goat to the hero back to the goat. I had a weird game one time. It was bad, then good, then bad. And he's like, all right, well, you've been both today.
There you go.
When I think of wish fulfillment, my goat for today, and I'm hoping I'm right on this, is Nick Saban. Oh. And
I'm surprised. Is he from Mobile?
And just Alabama, has such a historic pedigree of just domination in the sport of college football. And they were searching. They were wishing for a coach that could bring them the same level of prominence of success that Bear Bryant did. And he's done that. And hopefully, as I sit here with you today, I'm hoping that he's done that again. And I'm thinking that he's going to.
Wow. Big game Saturday between you two boys. I hope you watch it together.
Not this weekend. Not this weekend.
But
let's put a wager on it. I mean, you're a big-time Alabama guy, Let's put. I mean, it doesn't have to be money, but can we put a wager on it? I'd like to keep up with you guys during the game.
Yeah, I'll do it.
You can only send videos, no text videos.
I'll be there.
It's $100 Taco Bell.
Will you be
gift
there?
Card.
Are you confident enough that you're going to buy a ticket and go?
No, he's not.
Well, there you
I mean,
go.
He said he was a traveler, though, didn't he? Earlier,
Kansas, middle of the state. But wish
I'll be there.
wish fulfillment. Well, I mean, and Georgia's got a lot of wishes, don't they? With Kirby.
I'm holding on loosely. I've gotten my heart broken many a time by my team. So.
I feel like this is different than last Christmas. Katie was putting out the. We had come back from Thanksgiving, and she's putting out all the decorations, and I usually feel this sense of anxiety.
That's appropriate.
It's
a heavy season.
Well, it's just a lot of pressure.
It is,
and it seems like it's never enough. It seems like Christmas happens every month around my house, but there was something different this time. And when she puts out all the nutcrackers and she decorates the tree and just spending those little moments of time and thinking about what we've all been through over the last year, it made me stop and just say, don't worry about all the pressure and all the stress that comes along with this. Just be grateful that we have the opportunity to do this, that we are, in all practical intents and purposes, past the pandemic. At least we hope that. We think that that's the case. And to live in the moment, which is so hard for me to do. And it reminds me, I went to a conference, and then I heard my friend Quint Studer, who is a humanitarian philanthropist, consultant, friend of the show, and he said this that I think is part of the wish that I have and the fulfillment that I have for 2022. He said, in closing of his speech, he said, let's be grateful for what we have. Let's be grateful that we are here in this room, grateful for life itself, and grateful we can continue to make a difference. A heart full of gratitude has little room for anything else. A heart full of gratitude has little room for anything else. Don't be afraid to tell people you love them. Don't be afraid to tell people you love your job, you love your community, because what I think we need to bring back to our country, city, and hearts is way more love.
And there's no such thing as unexpressed gratitude.
Yeah.
There's no such thing, and I appreciate him finishing that thought the way that he did, because gratitude unexpressed is not gratitude. Does that make sense? I see a confused.
No, it totally makes sense. I think to have gratitude, and I equate part of the wish fulfillment that I have for Christmas this year, as opposed to the magic is in the mess. What I have for this year is, in wish fulfillment, is gratitude that, number one, we made it through the pandemic, and that I didn't die, that's a good thing. My kids made it through, and that people close to me made it through. And so this Christmas, to me, the wish fulfillment that I have is that I'll be able to be grateful in the way that Quint Studer talks about. And a heart full of gratitude has little room for anything else.
Well, to your point,
that's a very powerful statement.
To John's point, it's not gratitude if you don't speak it. I mean, look at social media now. How many times do you see gratitude on social media? Mm-hmm. So I made a post last night about loving Murfreesboro on Facebook, and a part of it was from what you shared there. And I wanted to just kind of see what the reactions were, right? Yeah. And there was plenty of people who liked it and loved it. And then there had to be one negative comment, It's like, really? Did you just have to go there? There's times where you can separate the positive and the negative and just not harp on the negative right now. Not
in social media.
Well, what about all the traffic? Well, yeah. Well, you got a lot of people who want to live in Middle Tennessee. What do you expect?
Yeah.
And, if you would have been in the mayor's position or anybody, would you have seen all the traffic coming here?
That's right.
Why wouldn't you have made all 5-lane highways? So you wouldn't have. You wouldn't have the vision in the future to see that.
We need a Buc-ee's.
Well, I talked about last year at this Christmas episode how none of us really gets what we want for Christmas, right? Like, I want my kids to enjoy more than 2 minutes the gifts that they open.
Yeah.
and I want them to be grateful, and they're not, and then I'm not, right? Like, none of us really gets what we want.
Poof, there it goes.
One of the things that my wife does every year, November 1st, she puts out a gratitude jar, and with a thing of candy, a jar of candy next to it, and a gratitude jar with these pieces of paper, and anybody that wants to take a candy that lives at our house or comes to visit between November 1st and December 1st, they can write a word or two on this paper, put it in, and gets to take a candy, a word or two of gratitude. And I took all these things out. She keeps everything in a baggie every year, right? So we've got like 7 years worth of the kids writing these things down, which is really neat. And as I sit there and look at these things, one of my favorite quotes on gratitude that it was reminded me as you read Quint's quote, and as I think about this really cool thing that Vanessa does every year, gratitude turns what we have into enough. And as I start to read these things over and over from my kids, from when John David was 4, or Georgia Grace is 3, and she's writing these things down and telling me what to write, it turns what we have into enough. And it makes me wonder, what if those deep wishes, that wish fulfillment, what if my deepest wishes are already being fulfilled, and I just occasion or maybe come in and out of actually recognizing that?
You think that's what happens?
I do.
I do too.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't have come to that conclusion if you hadn't said it prior to the show. But when I sit here and think about this episode, and I think about wish fulfillment, I think about all those movies that I've watched that are based in wish fulfillment, I think you're 100% right to say that we come in and out of consciousness about that our greatest wishes are fulfilled.
Yeah.
Why is that?
We need reminders. I think we are hardwired, unfortunately, to forget. And we've got to remind ourselves, and we've got to remind each other. And part of the reason that we love Christmas movies and we keep going back to them every single year is they are reminders of these kinds of things. Mm-hmm. They're reminders that, at least for me, that I want to be as capable, noble, and willing to face adversity as John McClane. The Grinch, he, every year from that moment that he stole Christmas, and then he looked the next morning with everybody's toys and food and presents up on top of Mount Rumpet or whatever he was. Yeah. And he looks down on all the Who's, and he says, with his feet ice cold in the snow, he stood puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags, without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. What if Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store? What if Christmas perhaps means a little bit more? Every year from that moment, he thought and had that same moment of memory of that. And I think we've got to be reminded.
And now we know where Amazon was born.
Yeah.
What if Christmas didn't come from a store?
It came from online.
Came from an app.
That's right. Yes, it does. Thank
Wasn't
you,
that
Amazon.
good?
Yeah, well played. The Grinch.
All right, we're gonna get close to making sure that Santa gets down the chimney here, but let's do this. Let's go around and tell me the wish that you have that you want to have fulfilled for 2021, or maybe going into 2022. What is that one thing that maybe was fulfilled for you that consciously you now see it, or maybe not?
I'm going to tie in a couple of episodes that we've done here recently and bring back to that moment I had earlier this year around the whole car situation. To get the full story, you'll have to go back and listen. But these stakes in the ground that I put, and being curious, not judgmental, developing trust in those small moments, that's where I want to really lean in my own life, and I have been, and I've been challenged with it too, from a professional and a personal position, and in those relationships. That's what I want to get for Christmas, and I don't know that that's a thing, but that's what I'm focused on.
I like it.
And then bourbon outside of that. Sometimes that helps. Sometimes that helps that, actually.
Always. What about you, my friend?
First, Apple TV. So I can watch Ted Lasso.
Yes.
But I think like what you said, I want to take some time to slow down and enjoy the kids. You know, Henley's almost 2 now, and it feels like she was born yesterday.
Yeah.
And I feel like so much of the time we're trying to win or lose, and I think we're missing out on some of the other stuff too. So, not that I don't want to be successful or have drive or focus on business or whatever the case may be, but I want to take a little bit of time to slow down and spend time with family and let my team spend time with family and just bond. And another thing,
he's coming into his Jerry Maguire moment.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what I'm
getting
doing?
close to your mid-30s? That's what happens.
Yeah, and I just want to take time in my relationships that I have now, both personal and professionally. I think I have some good relationships, but I want to focus on being slower to speak and quicker to listen, and ask the right questions and have deeper conversations. You know, plenty of people can say, "Hey, how you doing? How's work?" or "How's your kids?" or "How's your wife?" But how can you have more intentional, in-depth conversations and get to know your friends and family more and be there more? You know, so many times we just have unintentional conversations, really just to say we had a conversation, and I want to get better at that.
Well, I love you saying that, and you know, I've seen you start that thing from the ground up, and to build it to where it is today. In my mind, all the wishes that you had 2 years ago when you started that thing have now come true.
Yeah.
And I think what's cool is that probably those wishes that you once had 2 years ago have now completely changed. And
Very much so.
And what you wish for yourself, what you wish for the world, what you wish for other people, are now completely different. And I love to be a part of that, you know. And I know that you know, with where you are in your career, as we get to close 2021 and move into 2022, I know there's nobody that's more intentional about how you build relationships or the success that you want to find for yourself and for other people and for your family and for this area, you know. And we're all fortunate enough to have that. So for me, the wish for me is to continue to build relationships with people that are willing to have those kind of conversations.
Yeah.
And I love what Quint said when he said this. He said, "Don't be afraid to tell people you love your job, you love your community. Don't be afraid to tell people you love them, because what I think we need to bring back to our country, city, and hearts is way more love." And I love doing this. I love sitting at the table each week and having these kind of conversations. And I appreciate the investment that both of you have made in making this happen.
It's good to be here, and it's good to be back, and maybe wish fulfillment is a past tense exercise for me this Christmas than a future path.
Yeah.
As I think about what we've talked about with wish fulfillment, it makes me think of more future thinking rather than past, and that's really where gratitude comes into play, right? And what Quint talked about is this whole concept of gratitude and how it recognizing the wishes that have been fulfilled, not what I still want to happen. And there's importance to both.
Yeah.
But maybe the most important is looking back on what has happened and recognizing, verbalizing, writing those things down.
Yeah, I mean, be grateful for what we have, right? Be grateful for the wishes that have been fulfilled for us.
Yeah.
And the wishes that can be fulfilled in the future. We're excited for a 2022. We hope that Santa was good to you, and we look forward to season 2 and all that comes with that.
Good stuff ahead.
For Tyler Burnett and John Byers, I'm Colby Gibbonville.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to all.
Happy New Year.
And to all a good night. This is the Go Consulting Podcast.
Boom.